Sup, fuckers? Welcome back. And if you're coming here for the first time, how'd you find me? How the fuck did you find me here? The fuck, where's my family? So we're gonna get right into it. Today we're gonna be reading Lightspeed HQ's blog on how to be a good server, 29 tips and tricks from seasoned pros. This was made this year, so it's probably the most recent thing that I've read as far as being a server goes, and I am actually a seasoned pro myself. So we're gonna be going through all these tips and tricks and determining the validity of them, and I'll be offering my own advice so that if you're new to serving, you have a little bit of help going in. Well, let's dive in. Number 1, connect with your customers. While it can be hard to do so, especially with a million things running through your mind at any given moment, a server's top priority needs to be creating an amazing dining experience for each guest they serve. Now that's true. They can't just go through the motions and rehearse the same spiel with each customer. That's not true. Great servers connect with each guest differently. Those who succeed generate more tips, repeat customers, and table sales. Start by being personable and introducing yourself by name. A 2009 study found that servers who introduced themselves by name saw a 23% increase in their tips. A separate study found that telling a joke to your guests can increase the tip by 40%. Laughter can also create fun memories and increase the probability of creating a regular customer. Okay, so there's a lot of truths to this. I think that this is just overthinking it to the extreme. I have worked in restaurants where you have a spiel that you cannot break from. You have an actual script that you have to memorize word for word and repeat it to each guest verbatim. It is a lot of going through the motions. I think the reason that so many different servers can work in so many different places is because it's so much of going through the motions. It's really up to you and solely in your tone and how you speak, whether or not for it to seem like it's going through the motions. I've definitely been at a table, and instead of speaking out jokes and stuff, I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing today? Can I get you anything to drink? Would you like a minute to look over the menu? Sure, I'll give you guys a few minutes to look that over while I get your drink started. All right, have we had enough time to browse through that menu? Any questions? You have questions? Well, I have answers. It's the same thing every time. It's just whether or not you want it to sound like you're having more fun. And you can honestly tell the same joke with every single table and they will love it because every single table is going to tell you the same joke. Example. So to preface this, I'm a server. I'm also a guest with an empty plate, okay? Excuse me, sir, I noticed that plate is empty. Mind if I grab that out of your way for you? Oh yeah, take that out of my way, darling. I don't want to see it. As you can tell, I hated it. That's the same joke that's told over from the customer a million times a day. An empty plate and them saying that they absolutely hated it. To which I respond with the exact same joke 100 times a day. I hated it so much you had to get it all out of your sight, right? Let me grab that for you. I'm glad everything else is doing good over here, okay? And then walk off with the plate. Yeah, you can connect with your customers, but more often than not, it's not going to be a genuine connection. I have had genuine connections with tables that I tell the stories of years after the fact, and it's not anything that I went out of my way to create. It was the same jokes, and then it was the same jokes, the same introductions, but then we decided to talk more from there. And you can do the same thing every single time, but the outcome's always going to be different. Upsell customers using personal experience. Upselling is a sales strategy where servers recommend higher priced menu items based on the conversations they have with their guests about their likes and preferences. Great upsellers ask discovery questions that help you learn more about the guest. Listen intently to their answers and recommend menu items based on the information provided. One true way of upselling effectively is to focus on how an item will complement the dining experience. For example, rather than saying, would you like a glass of wine with your meal? A server could say, I tried this Pinot Noir the other day, and I think it would pair very nicely with your filet mignon. It will enhance and bring out flavors in meat while enhancing its texture. Would you like me to bring a glass out for you to taste? This approach works because you're giving context, relating it to personal experience, and selling the wine not on its taste, but how it will complement the guest's meal and enhance their eating experience. Yeah, this is something that they teach you in fine dining, and it will work on tables that it might work with. The thing is, again, every single table is different. So you could, let's say you ask your customer questions and you learned from their answers that instead of filet mignon and a red wine, they may appreciate a fish and a white wine. And you say, oh, I tried this Sauvignon Blanc the other day and I think it would pair very nicely with the blackened trout you got. It will enhance the taste and bring out the flavors in the fish while enhancing that lovely texture. Would you like for me to bring a glass out for you to taste? I'm gonna say at least 70% of the tables are gonna interrupt you at least 4 times throughout that spiel. It doesn't need to be so deep, but you definitely can do this. This is a wonderful tip. If you're working in fine dining, I think if you're working in more of a fast-paced casual setting as well, it could work, but in either setting, you're gonna need to understand that a lot of people, they don't give a shit about the server. They're not here to have a dining experience with you. You're there to provide it for them. And because of that, a lot of people like for the server to stay out of their business, out of the table space as much as possible. So speaking like this could be overstepping, and not only will you get interrupted, but you could even upset some people. I have definitely experienced that. Karens fucking hate me. Never make assumptions. A great server never assumes what a guest is going to order until it's inputted. I feel like that's really weird phrasing. Into the point of sale system. Ah, yes, the POS. We call it the piece of shit. Keep in mind that guests see servers as the restaurant's encyclopedia. They're going to ask you questions about your special new menu items, your personal favorite dishes and appetizers, as well as your wine list. All factual. One of the things that I always tell my trainees is, like, from each section of the menu, like the appetizer section, pick one appetizer. The soup section, pick one soup. Salads, pick one salads. Entree, pick one entree. Dessert, pick one dessert. Each varietal of wine, Cabernet, Pinot Noir, pick a certain wine from each varietal, and then a certain beer from each type. Pick a wheat, pick a stout, pick a Hefeweizen, pick an IPA, just one of each section while you're training. So that way, once you come out of training, you have at least one thing to properly recommend people, as to not get overwhelmed with having to memorize the entire rest of the menu, because you will have to know every single wine and every single beer on the list. But coming out of training, it's easy to be able to recommend just one thing and be able to talk about that one thing better than anything else, while the rest of the menu items are catching up to that. Be efficient. Turning tables efficiently is key to a restaurant making more money, but there's a fine line between turning tables and rushing guests. Oh, the truth in this! Following the steps of service will help you stay within your restaurant's average table turn time and keep a steady, predictable flow of customers and profits. And if you want to be a good server when it's busy, it can come in handy. So here are their steps of service. Within the first 90 seconds, the server greets guests and takes their drink order. Yes, you should. I like to try to be at the table within 20 seconds of them sitting down. We greet all of our tables with water. If that's an option for you, I would highly recommend it. It cuts out the middleman for a lot of orders and speeds up that dining experience. Within 4 to 5 minutes of them sitting down, drinks are delivered and the server takes their meal order. I think 4 to 5 minutes is kind of pushing it. If a guest is waiting 5 minutes before they've received anything, they tend to get antsy. So I would honestly put this between like the 2 and 4 minute mark, 4 minutes tops. However, this can all vary depending on, the circumstances in the area. If the bartender is behind, it has, and it likely will, at some point or another, take 15 minutes. 15 fucking minutes to get a drink. Within 9 minutes, server plates the table and adds appropriate utensils and checks to see if guests need a refill. I do that within, if we're going between 2 and 4 minutes for drinks being delivered and the meal order being taken, it is not at the 9-minute mark that I mark my table. It is at the 5-minute mark that I'm marking my table appropriately. Because you don't know what can happen in those extra 4 minutes. You can get sat 5 separate times, and guess what? Your table that had soup, they're not properly sat with a spoon. They need refills. Their second round of drinks didn't get run. Their appetizer's not out. You didn't prop them with plates. They don't have their sauces. That someone needs a sugar caddy. It all needs to be done as soon as possible. You don't need to interrupt and be like, oh yes, here's this, 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 and this. You can let them continue their conversation while properly marking them as to not interrupt everything and keep the flow going. 9 minutes is way too long, unless it's like a crazy busy night. But if it's like you have a full section and you are appropriately sat out so you are not behind or weeded or anything, it should not be 9 minutes. Check. Food delivered. I guess, yeah, that varies. It didn't give a time point for this one. The server asks guests if there's anything else they can bring them. I like to say, how does everything look that makes them look at their food? You would be surprised how many times I have ran food for other people. I didn't take their order and they have the wrong food. And I've done it. This isn't me saying my coworkers always fuck up the meals or anything. I've probably done it the most, honestly. But a guest will receive the wrong meal, and because they didn't look at it, by the time the person who ran the food is going away, they realize they have the wrong meal and they're having to flag down somebody else's server because the other server's busy if they couldn't run the food, and so on and so forth. So ask them how everything looks. Everything looks good. All right, let me top you off with some water while I am here instead of asking them if I can bring them some water. Make sure you scan the table. Everything's good. All right, is there anything else I can bring you? Right now during COVID, we have to bring salt and peppers to the table upon request, so I would suggest that. 2 to 4 minutes after food being delivered, the server checks in on the guest, asks if the food is to their liking, and asks if they need a refill. Yeah, 2 to 4 minutes is good. 2-minute 2-bite rule. Hey guys, how's everything tasting over here? Good, good. And then this refill thing, I think they're referring to like water. I don't think you should ever ask for a water refill. I don't think your guest should ever have to ask if they can have their water refilled unless it's after they've already paid out. Because once they're paid out, I'm like, okay, you no longer exist. Because, I mean, I'm not making any more money off of them. However, I never say, would you like a refill on that? I always say, would you like another one? Because refill implies that it's free and a lot of things are not. Like, people will try to be like, ooh, at one restaurant that I worked at, we served guacamole. It's okay, I can say that I am Mexican. And these people ended up literally running their tab, like running away from their tab. But they had asked for a refill on guac. And once they said that, I was like, I can't get you a refill because that implies that it's free, but I can get you another order. So can I get you another cocktail? May I get you another glass of that wine? May I get you another this? So that way it implies that it is additional so people don't. And you would be surprised the amount of people that even for an alcoholic beverage will think that shit's free refills. Speaking of efficiency, great servers know how to never waste a moment. They never go from one place to another empty-handed. Is this bitch about to tell me full hands in, full hands out? There's always something that needs to be taken from the dining room to the dish pit. This is full hands in, full hands out. Bar or kitchen or vice versa. Even if you have a pre-assigned area, help your team bus tables, restock service station, or clear tables. Help build camaraderie with your front of house and back of house team members. It's not that deep. Help when you can. And if you never help, you will be asked to, and that would be your opportunity to then help. Handle campers diplomatically. I bet I'm gonna disagree with this. While it's great that your guests are having a great time and want to keep the conversation going, what they may not know is that they're throwing off your restaurant's ideal table turnover rate. Facts! We call guests that stay at their table for a long time after they've paid for their meal campers. And for many servers, it's one of their biggest pet peeves. Yes. Yes. As a server, you never want to be rude or make guests feel unwelcome. How else do you expect me to get them out other than making them feel unwelcome? Sometimes the best way to handle a camper is honestly. They really said that. Sometimes the best way to handle a camper is honestly. You have a terrible editor-in-chief. Try saying something to the effect of, sorry folks, I loved serving you, but we have another table who made a reservation that needs this table. I can't imagine that being said at my restaurant. Okay. So, like, we have been so busy that we have had to have, incoming tables sit down with an out time, and we tell them, hey guys, the only reason we're able to seat this table is that you understand that you have to leave by, let's say, 7 p.m. because we have a reservation coming in at 7:15. And people will hear that and go out of their way to overstay as to see if we kick them out. And I work for a locally owned place. We end up not asking them to move because it's rude and you don't want to turn away somebody who may become a regular. I don't care, actually. The manager doesn't want to turn away somebody who might become a regular. And so they're not going to risk that by, making them feel unwelcome. And that's something that would definitely make someone feel unwelcome, especially these kind of people, because whenever they do overstay, we end up finding a different accommodation for the reservation, luckily, or we make the reservation wait, and these people will get up like 5 minutes after they were supposed to leave, or 20 minutes after they were supposed to leave. And as they're leaving, they'll be like, what happened to that reservation you told us we had to be out for? And we'll have to be like, they're waiting at the bar right now. Or we had to accommodate them elsewhere. Or, they'll come up and be like, guess you didn't really need us out at that time. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, why can't you just listen to the people who are politely telling you at the beginning of the meal something that you are agreeing to by accepting this table? Why do that? There's no way to handle it diplomatically, so what we tend to do is sit at the table across from them and stare. Dead ass. Former bartender, I only say former because he's not fired. Whenever people would stay after closing at the bar, and he'd be done closing, like he would close them out, but we can't leave if people are still there. And he would sit just a couple bar stools down and just stare at them. I mean, just absolutely fucking stare them down until they leave. And because that's the only way that a lot of people are going to get the fucking hint. There's no way to handle it diplomatically. So let's just go into this and avoid saying, sorry, folks, I'd love serving you, but we have another table who made a reservation. Don't say that unless they tell you to. Have some fun with getting them to leave. Stare at them. Overfill their water until it's like reaching surface tension. You know, just have some fun with it. How to be a good restaurant server. Isn't that what this is? Why is that there again? According to The Insider, we interviewed the best restaurant servers possess 3 qualities. Be adaptive. Yes. Be likable. It can be faked. Know your menu. That's the most important thing. Be adaptable. The best restaurant waiters, outdated term, it's servers, lovely. It's more inclusive. The best restaurant waiters understand how to read their customers and tweak their approach to their needs. Yes. You meet all different kinds of people and you have to adapt, says Eric Bayless, owner of Big Onion Hospitality, which operates 8 restaurants. Sounds like a chain to me. I don't fuck with corporate. There are some pros and cons to working in either, but I don't fuck with corporate places. Some customers are really friendly and some aren't. Ain't that the truth, sister? It's about having the kind of personality where you can adapt to that and not be afraid to approach tables. You definitely have to get over any insecurities or anxieties that you have with talking to strangers, which sounds like really close-minded of me for me to be like, oh, get rid of your anxieties. That's not what I say, but this is not a job that you can do if you freak out or get uncomfortable or throw yourself into panic attacks or anxiety attacks by having to be surrounded by strangers and people you don't know and people who aren't always going to be the friendliest. You have to be... People don't like it when I say this, but I always say we're manipulative. We're very manipulative. I will manipulate you into coming in to spend $20 and leave spending $150 and leaving your phone number. You know, it's about getting the tip. Servers are actors and the restaurant is our stage. For instance, maybe one table wants a few minutes of friendly small talk while another is anxious to get their meal on and get on their way. Caroline Markham, general manager at Eastern Standard in Boston, describes this quality as picking up on what customers want me to do. What are they expecting my service style to be and how can I match that? Adaptability also extends to lending a helping hand to your team when it's needed, from helping bussers clear tables to running drinks for the bartender. What a weird dynamic this restaurant has. Why would you run the drinks for the bartender? The bartender makes the drinks and the server runs the drinks to their table. Weird. And we don't have busboys. Bayless encourages staff to treat others as if they're walking into your personal home. If somebody walked into my home and acted like the way that half these fucking customers act, I would kill them with a guitar. I would beat them. I would beat them senselessly with a guitar. And then I would go to jail for murder. Murder. He explains that if I came over to your house, I'm pretty sure you would be a good server. You wouldn't say, no, that's the back bar's job, the bar back's job. I can't read today. You would just do it. That's because you're not tipping out a bar back at home, though. I'm not saying don't help your coworkers. Definitely help your coworkers at any of a available moment that you have, but that's not the same as inviting somebody into your home and taking care of your own home. You don't tip out a bar back at your home. And if you do have a bar back, you are tipping them out. You are giving them a portion of the money that you made that night in exchange for the services that they're supposed to provide with you. Be likable, something I'm clearly not. I'm a bitch. A positive can-do attitude is essential to winning over patrons and coworkers. If during an interview, you ask how the candidate would handle an irate customer and they say, well, I don't like customer complaints, that's a red flag that they're not cut out to be a server. Who likes customer complaints? How would I handle an irate customer? I don't even know how I would answer that. Nobody's ever asked me. And I have dealt with many. I don't even know how I would answer that. That's so vague. Thomas makes a point of hiring servers who are open to taking feedback. We can have them train with another waitress if they're having trouble in one area. She adds, a good server knows how to maintain their composure in front of customers, different situations, and use that feedback to get better. I think this is really confusing because nobody likes customer complaints. I don't like customer complaints, but I haven't gotten one in a very long time, but I used to get them and I would take those complaints and use them as constructive criticism as to improve my service in the future. However, there are only so many complaints you can get before you kind of mold your service around being something impeccable. Because there's just not that many things that you can accidentally fuck up so consistently. So it gets to the point where the customer complaints are just that, and they are complaints. It's not criticism. It's not constructive. It's not anything that you can change. How am I supposed to fix the complaint that it's cold outside? How am I supposed to fix the complaint that the one sandwich that they came in here for that they know is limited time only for the day isn't there, and that's the only reason they came, and they don't want any of the suggestions that I have. They just want that sandwich. There are some things where yeah. I don't like customer complaints, and a lot of the times customers don't have valid ones. At a certain point, they become invalid because you can only apply so much correcting to your service before you maintain a pretty perfect level of service. Know your menu. Okay, I feel like I'm not going to disagree with anything here because this is basically the most important thing about working in a restaurant. You know what? Maybe it's the second most important thing because I did actually work at a restaurant where I did not know the menu or any of the actual table numbers in the dining room for a full year that I was working there. I worked there regularly for a year and bullshit my way through all of it. It wasn't my priority job. If you're judging me right now, I hated it and I only needed it for the money. I left from the sexual harassment. Eastern Standard has a particularly robust training program to ensure that front of house staff who tend to be younger and eager make good impressions on older customers who have been regulars for years. How do you teach a 19-year-old server just learning the ropes how to take care of people who are in their mid-40s and have seen it all? How can that server delight that jaded 45-year-old? What? What do you mean? Her job is to explain the menu and take the order, drop a joke. She doesn't need to delight that jaded 45-year-old, and if he's coming in with an attitude after being a regular for so many years, then maybe he doesn't need to be a regular there. I work at a place where I came into an establishment that had pre-established regulars, and they're all wonderful. And it just so happens that when the good ones stay, it's super easy to get along with them and move into that kind of position that this person wants, but you're not having to delight a jaded 45-year-old. They're happy to have someone new to get them what they want, It's just, I don't know, when there are good regulars, it's not hard to fit in. And when there are bad regulars, they will weed themselves out. And I can't say that for the place that I work at because there have been no bad regulars, so nobody has weeded themselves out. We have to find different ways to excite them and make memories for our guests. After their initial training, which is really just focused on the mechanical steps of service, teaching them how to use the POS system, and getting them well acclimated with our employee handbook, we focus on teaching them how to project knowledge, warmth, and confidence with our guests. Twice a day, once for the morning crew and once for the evening crew, a rotating roster of managers, sous chefs, and others present to servers on different topics to help them be more knowledgeable. This is like corporate as hell. For example, a recent briefing focused on the origins of beef tartare and its ideal wine pairings can help servers with their customer interactions. That's true, but that's just like overstating it a shit ton. I know so many fun facts about so many different menu items that are like really interesting, and I get to use maybe 2 a year. And I'd say one of them are actually interested in it. You can't always work it into there, and even when you can, lots of people don't give a shit, Oh my god, this is the that was all the fucking beginning. I just got to the tips and tricks. What is this? That is ridiculous. I just broke down the entire wrong part of the blog. This is the tips and tricks. Okay, number 1, write thank you on your guest checks. Studies show that it can increase your tips by 13%. It can also piss off your customer's wife or girlfriend, so I don't do that. Speak to your guests, learn their preference, and suggest drinks, appetizers, entrees, and desserts. Try to sell the experience. Upsell, baby! Suggest expensive drinks, the expensive appetizers, and the second most expensive entree so it doesn't look like you're trying to ring them for all they've got. Number 3, always stay positive and approach guests with a smile. I agree. A smile goes a long way in service. Like, a long way. I learned that when I was like 15 and working in my first restaurant. It goes a long ass way. But then again, one time I found out that I was being cheated on at work and I was crying, and tears get you far more tips. I wasn't like crying at the table, but you could tell what was going on my face. Offer recommendations to the guests based off of their preference and your experience. Wasn't that basically just the last one? Try to remember the guest name and faces. If they become a repeat customer and you remember their name, guests will be blown away. Yeah, pretty true. Know your restaurant's VIPs. No. Oh, no, 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 no. What we're not gonna do is treat others like they are better than other guests in the restaurant. No, no, no. You should not put one guest above another. You should be treating them all with the equal level of service. No, no, no. No, no, number 6. I don't like that one. Always actively listen to your guests. That is a good rule of thumb. Sometimes it doesn't happen though. Smile at every guest you make eye contact with. I do this and now I can't stop ever. Like I make eye contact with strangers and immediately like at them, like a big scary smile. Not even like a white person polite, like a eye contact and I even go as far as, hey, how are you doing today? And they're like, oh, good. Or sometimes they're like, and then keep walking, which I understand. Try not to interrupt a guest conversation. I mean, try, you will not succeed. If all they're doing over dinner is talking, and you have to interrupt. You have to, say, hey, let me get this out of your way. Who's taking it? Oh, come on, bitch. Get down. Go on. Get down. Yeah, people are going to be talking the whole time. You're going to interrupt. You just have to accept the fact that you need to learn how to do it graciously because it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. Handle glasses by the stem and plates by the bottom. Never touch the surface area that will come in. Well, you handle glasses by the stem because you don't want to get thumbprints on the bowl, nor do you want to, fuck up the temperature on a white wine glass. And you grab the plates. I grab them. I put my thumb on the top. The food's in the middle. Like, this is how you drop things. This is how you drop things. And that's how you don't put them down properly. Especially when, people aren't moving. Like, people will set their shit all up on the table and you're holding a hot plate from the bottom. That's just gonna burn. And whenever people won't move their shit, you got to, maneuver it around, which really helps to do with your thumb. That's why we got thumbs. Never say, I don't know. If you actually don't know the answer, respond with, let me find out. I don't mind saying I don't know. I immediately follow it with, let me find out. I don't think you should ever be like, oh, I don't know, and drop it at there, but I think it's okay to be honest and say, I actually don't know the answer to this, but if you give me a moment, I'd love to go ask the kitchen manager and find out. It's not that hard to be honest. Never remove a plate with food on it without asking a guest first. And if a guest asks you to take it, ask what was wrong with the dish. Why would you ask that? So yeah, never remove a plate with food on it because they might still be eating. I always like to ask, hey, are you still working on this? Hey, you still munching on that? And if there is food on it, because there's a lot of times there's food still left on the plate. We have really big portions where I work. I don't say, oh, what was wrong with it? Because I asked when I sat it down, does everything look okay? And then 2 minutes into the meal, I asked if everything was tasting okay. And then 7 minutes later, I asked, hey, are we still doing okay over there? And they said yes. You should never be being handed a meal back at the end when you're taking plates and asking what's wrong with the dish unless you're trying to make a cheesy joke. You should know that something was wrong with the dish in the beginning. Never swear in front of your guests unless it's your restaurant's theme. Yeah, pretty good rule of thumb. Be consistent with your service throughout every course. Yes. 15, never let a guest overorder. Offer advice and let them know portion sizes in advance. That can be taken so incorrectly so quickly. So there's a really specific way that you have to learn how to do it. At my restaurant, we have potato chips and ranch dip, and it's a pretty cheap appetizer, but it's a lot of food. It's like a bowl this big, and then a 6-ounce ramekin of a thick ranch, and people will see that and see the cheap price and be like, ooh, chip and dip, that sounds good. And then they get this big thing. But the thing is, sometimes that's exactly what they want, and other times they get really upset. Why didn't you tell me this was more? So I always like to offer, whenever they do that, would you like the appetizer portion or would you like the side portion? Because we can also just do a side of chips and then a little side of dipping ranch. Or if it's a huge salad and they said that they want to eat light, you say, would you like the small or the large salad? You don't just be like, I think you're ordering too much. Our portion sizes are really big, because that could be immediately mistaken as, oh my God, you're eating that much and you don't want to do that. Rude. 16, don't ignore a table just because it isn't in your section. If you see someone who needs help, do. Your colleagues will love you for it. Yeah, if you're paying attention to other people's sections, but I personally don't. If we're so busy that somebody's not being noticed at a table, if we're that busy, there's no way that I'm paying attention to anybody else's section but trying to keep up with my own. But if you notice, yes. If you don't, that's not on you. They should be paying attention to their own sections. Don't leave a place setting if they aren't going to be used. I suppose that's true. We bring the place settings with the amount of people that come, so there's never any extras. Let us know if the kitchen or bar is out of something as soon as possible, so they don't read it on the menu and get disappointed. I mean, yeah, it's better to do that than to tell them, oh, sorry, we don't have that. But a lot of the times you'll be like, okay, so we are actually out of this, this, and this today. And they'll be like, okay, like we weren't gonna get that. Like people are rude and you gotta expect that. If one of your guests asks to speak to a manager, don't take it personally. If they're rude, you can take it personally. It's never personal about you though. It's like always because they want free food, they want a gift card, they want something to make up to the service, so it's not necessarily personal to use a server because it's something that they do everywhere, but you can take it personal. Get mad. What are they gonna do? Not tip? Too late. They're not doing that. You know they're not doing that. 20. Always place the check in a neutral place, otherwise you risk letting your personal biases show, which isn't good. Yeah, I think it's not as deep as personal biases, but I always just set the check in the middle but it's a lot easier to be like, all right guys, we're gonna be separate or together today. And normally if it's together, one person will be like, oh, it's together, I will take it, or oh, it's together, and you can set it in front of the person who initiated that. And then if they're all separate, you can set everyone's individual check in front of them. However, when it's like a date or something and you just know that it's gonna be together and you don't have to ask, I always just set it in the middle. Or if it's like two friends, I always set it in the middle. Learn your restaurant's POS system like it's the back of your hand. It's your go-to tool for managing service. Well, no shit. Okay, so this was a mostly factual and helpful good server tips. It was really oddly written out considering the actual list only took like 10 minutes to get through, and the rest of it took like a lot longer. That was really weird. But yeah, hopefully these tips and tricks will help you if you are new to serving. I know some of my followers have been asking me to make a video like this for a long time because they're new to serving. They're about to start becoming a server. They're interested in serving. This actually gives you a halfway decent idea of what to prepare yourself to do. It excluded, make sure you memorize your table numbers on the first day. Very important. I think that's all for today. So thanks. Bye.